Now I'm a little bit rethinking how I want to put this. I want to take this approach with a pair of delicate gloves. Now, I at this point, now even though I've just given up on it, and done the fuck it kind of unhinged response, I want to say this. I dispute your mischaracterization of my words and the way that I put it as victim blaming, and I dispute it on the grounds that my statement doesn't resemble victim blaming, true victim blaming. The distinction that I'm going to make is going to be subtle, but I'm going to go over it now and show you why I don't agree with your characterization of it as victim blaming. I dispute that it's victim blaming on the grounds that victim blaming needs a much more tight definition than what I did. Okay? Like, we need to say that victim blaming is also saying that the victim deserved their fate. We need to say that we need to establish that if you're that term should be reserved for those that argue that we should not have empathy for the victim because of the fact that the victim was partially responsible for what happened to them. Like that's a load of crap. It's like, so like what I'm doing and what I said was you can act in such a way that prevents this. My friend could have prevented what happened to her and everything, but did you, I need to ask you, do you really think that I think my friend deserved to die because of the fact that she made a bad choice in keeping Jennifer as part of her life? Like, I would give anything if it were possible to bring her back from the dead. Like, you really think that I have that sort of point of view about it? Like, so if I say like something along the lines of like, if you don't love yourself, you're likely to attract a lot of, the kinds of people that have a lot of red flags and that you shouldn't be with in the first place and should run like fucking hell against. The people that you let in are going to be the worst, and the people that you push away are going to be the people that you should probably go out with. And in saying that, um, you're going to characterize that as victim blaming, and I'm going to dispute that it's victim blaming, and I'm going to dispute that it's victim blaming on the grounds that, essentially, when you're victim blaming, an example of victim blaming would be saying something like, during the hurricane, okay, there's a hurricane that just hit Florida. You go into their videos and you see that it's happening and that they're crying out for mercy and compassion from people, and you say something along the lines of, I don't feel anything for those fucking people. I don't have any empathy for what happened to them because they should have known better than to put themselves in, the state that they're in, because that's so obviously a hurricane path and everything, that they should have known better than to build there and buy land there. They deserve what happened to them because they were too stupid to place their property on stable land. So they deserve their fate. I can maintain the cognitive dissonance of my belief in a just world by distorting reality into one in which the victim deserves their fate. By doing this, that's real victim blaming. What I said is different than victim blaming, because what I did was not say that just because the victim could do something to prevent what happened to them doesn't mean that they deserved what happened to them. I never fucking said that, you know? And I also want to double down and say that I never fucking meant that. So I didn't mean it in that manner, the manner that you actually took those words to mischaracterize them as victim blaming. I want to read a quote to you though, as sort of a ceiling cat, as in the debunking of things. It's a quote that backs up my take on things, and it's from an actual woman. I and that quote, okay, I kind of mischaracterized it as I was writing it down, so I had to do a few edits to it. But that quote right there, I don't know if you've ever been in a bad relationship, but it seems to happen or to come that you find yourself you find people saying ugly things to you when you say ugly things about yourself. About 10 years ago, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship, and I wonder what part of me, looking back, thought that it was okay for somebody to speak to me in that kind of degrading way. And the fact is, it's because I had the same voice he did. It matched. And now that it doesn't match, I don't hear those things anymore. You know? So here's the thing. I hate nice guy TMs. My hatred is founded on the idea that it's fucking cruel, really, to say that women make bad choices about relationships so they deserve to be abused. Like, that would be real victim blaming. What I do is more like victim women make bad choices in relationships, but I still feel sorry for them. Nobody deserves to be abused just because they made a bad selection. So my heart goes out to you. I'm sorry for, just being so aggressive and everything, but I feel like I get hit with this too often, and I'm angry about it because it's like like I can't do what I'm trying to do because there's these women that just keep getting in my way about it. Like, they don't want to play nice with me for some reason, and it's just like, dude, like, ma'am, I didn't I've done a lot for the feminist cause. I mean, I really have. After my friend died, I was feminist blogging and tearing apart the nice guy complex for like 10 fucking years that I put in. I'm not asking for much as a reward for my activism. I'm just, kind of tired of being held to like these impossible standards that you ladies seem to want to hold us up to. I'm just a person. I'm not perfect. I have flaws, but I don't owe you perfection anyways. Like, so maybe step off a bit, you know? I didn't have to do anything to help you guys out. I really didn't. I got involved because I fucking wanted to be in the first place. I wanted a place in the movement, and I wanted to be useful to women. And in this case, I want to push an agenda of self love just because, I don't. I had a friend that died. I suspect to a huge degree, that my friend died in part, at least partially, because she didn't love herself enough to, assert boundaries and police her boundaries in a way in which she would push back against an abuser who literally stole from her. And then after the abuser stole from her, later on they kept hanging out, and she got her into the car the day that she drove off and into the river and everything. And it's just, my friend's death kind of made me think an examination when she died, and my dissection of an analysis on what exactly transpired between the two of them. I walked away from that experience thinking, basically, wow, you know I know that if I go out there and I try to push this message of self-love, that not everybody will receive it the right way or think the same thing. But I'm starting to realize that in this situation, in this one, this is an example of a woman who, a very young woman, and at the tender age of 23, who's dead now, who, if she had loved herself, maybe we can speculate would have done something to push the girl who was driving the car in, and who drove the car off the road and over the rails and into the lake in which she drowned. you know Maybe she would have pushed that person away if she had known how special she was, and had not hated herself because of the fact that her community, you know, it thought she was a bad influence because she smoked pot, and because people said such terrible things to her on the bus, because of the fact that she didn't fit in as well as she wanted to, you know, because of a lot of things. She wanted to be more popular than I did. I ended up realizing that she had ambitions in that space that I didn't really have. That was a big mismatch between us. But yeah, victim blaming, she engaged in, yeah, I didn't, victim blaming is more complex basically than what I said. I think that the distinction that I'm trying to draw between my phraseology and it is just, victim blamers will take the extra step of basically saying that they deserved it because they made these bad choices, and mine is more like people make bad choices a lot, but they don't deserve to suffer because they made those bad choices. You know, that's the difference. Like, I kind like part of the nice guy complex is that sense of bitterness, anyways, that women, you know, they don't pick you, they pick guys that really don't deserve to be with women. Now, I think that may be true still. They still do kind of like often make bad choices in that department, but they still have my empathy in those shit choices now. That's what happened. Kara passed, she dies. I go through this interpersonal transformation as a result. Re, you know, Moment of shock, lost identity, being the identity that dies is the nice guy dies. What comes up in his place is this guy that realizes, oh my God, I've had an all or nothing approach to my relationships in the past. I need to go make amends for the previous women that I've just stepped out on in these situations as well. I need to reconnect with Kimberly because I did that to her. Just stepped out in that situation, and then it was make amends for acting that way in your own past, and then also take a moment to acknowledge that, like, first of all, women's safety is more important than my own romantic fulfillment. So priorities now have kicked women being safe. I would prefer women be safe over I be romantically fulfilled. That was a big one. When that stone like crumbled and the reordering of things happened, I started to become more and more passionately in alignment with, a feminist identity. It had suddenly dawned on me that I'm a very small fish in a very big world. And when you have that, displacement of what the center of your universe is that happens, like, it's pretty big. It's a pretty big thing for you and a very powerful transformation to go through. So as my identity started to crumble, I started to make that old blog that for some reason, like, Tumblr just accused me of like affiliate marketing and terminated. But yeah, I was a feminist Tumblr blogger for about 10 years as a result of her death. And my message is very basic at this point. It's been said before, but these days there are more people with eyes on it than there were back then. And it's basically just a plea to women to start a self-love journey. Start your journey, because when for all we know, since it could have saved Kara's life, maybe it will save yours too. You never know. These things, they happen, though, as her death that demonstrates. It was a tragedy, and I think even worse is that if it could have potentially been prevented, especially since her death was the result of a confluence of so many factors that came together to enable the tragedy in the first place. We could pull it apart in multiple ways that would have saved her life. If people hadn't called her a bad influence, it might have boosted her ego. She might not have internalized the criticisms that were being made of her. You know, had Jennifer, just not been driving, the car, so many other factors that you could tear that thing apart. Had Kara actually loved herself, maybe she would have pushed her out of her life. And you can torture yourself by dwelling on that. I had to move on with my life ultimately, but I tried to basically say that, I am going to move on, but I think that I want to try to do something as a result of this death. And the one thing that I really did want when she died was, to And it really was like 10 years of feminist blogging before they fucking terminated me. But basically, it was this just desire to push, and push for a revolution of self love. We really, and to point out that, in a society that tries so very hard to make you doubt yourself, and literally pushes products on you to help you cope with that self doubt, loving yourself is actually a very revolutionary act to do, anyways. Like it's one that the advertisers of the world won't want you to do because they won't be able to sell you as much crap, basically, to beautify yourself because you already love yourself. Um, this is between kittens and riots. I think I'm kind of signing out on this one, but yeah, I went through that, and it was quite the ordeal. I went through the ego death as a result of her actual physical death, and it changed me. I mean, like I'm not the same person anymore. Like I have a different set of priorities. I realized that I'm like my place in the center of my own universe has been displaced at the altar of ideas that are now higher in the hierarchy of my own priorities. I mean, I still very much so want to be for romantically fulfilled, but I think I really am just one person in a very big world, and in a very big pond, so to speak. And my being romantically fulfilled is one thing, but I shouldn't let it, blind my scope of reality from the broader world that I'm surrounded by. A world in which women are getting killed because of this sort of shit. It's bad. It's dystopic. These sort of things shouldn't be happening. Anyways, that's my full thoughts about that one.